Hello ladies and gents, and welcome to another installment of CyberworldGaming. I am your host, Reaper. Today I'm going to be going into the how to tech tips and tricks portion of things, and today I want to explain the difference between WordPress and your hosting, especially like your server-side databasing. Now there are some similarities, but there's two very big fundamental differences, especially when it comes to when you're going to be onboarding new professionals. So let's get into it. So first and foremost, please like and subscribe to this video, and feel free to check out CyberWorld's product shop. We actually got a bunch of new products out with a bunch of new really cool designs, especially like this communist style baseball t-shirt. Anyway, with that said, let's get right into it. So your hosting, right? Your hosting, depending on whatever hosting you get, whether that be GoDaddy or HostGator or whatever that may be to you, pretty much every single one of them that I know of has a cPanel. So we're going to go into that. It should be for us, and HostGator be on the bottom right. Right, so cPanel specifically is where you go to access stuff like, as a good example, your shell, right? You access, for security purposes, of course, your databases, right? Your files, right, which will also be put within your databases. Oh, sorry. Where's it? Yeah, right here, databases. You'll find your domain names, right? Any redirects that come with that, etc., your emails, and everything else in between, right? You'll find software and scripts that you can actually input into your stuff, of course, and every single app essentially from Zaltoculus. So, where am I going with this, right? Okay, the reason why I'm going with this is because your HostGator cPanel is your hosting, right? That's where your database is stored. That's where your server side is. That's where all of those things are essentially at, right? Now, when you upload a script, right? Let's say off of Zaltoculus or an app for WordPress, right? That inherently creates a CMS platform, right? And what does that do exactly? Well, stuff like WordPress allows you to optimize your builds, right, for your front end pages. What is a front end page? It's a good example. This is a front end page, right, with wireframing, of course, and Masonic grids, and allows for transition effects and pages and a bunch of other really cool, nifty stuff, right? And where that specifically happens, is going to the second part of this, is your WordPress dashboard, right? After you install your script. Now this isn't your server side, this isn't your hosting, this is the CMS platform specifically, right? And this is where you essentially manage your page creation, right? Such as add new page, which will automatically create a page via PHP. Where you manage your media, upload new videos and images, check your analytics, make sure you manage your products. I use WooCommerce specifically. Visual Composer, for me, I use Visual Composer and WP Bakery for my wireframing. Your theme core, if you have one, Slider Revolution, WordFence, some other different stuff here. But basically, this is your CMS platform, right? To cut it short. And this is essentially where you manage your page on the ground level, right? If we were talking in physical terms, right? But on a non-physical space, right? So the difference between the two is, one, I manage specifically on the hosting, right? Because everything is essentially here for me to manage and go into, right? Such as my file manager to my my database. I use SQL. I could use PHP My Admin, but I'd rather use SQL. Let's see, my shell, my scripts, any other stuff that I want to add on, such as advanced terminals, Apache, whatever the case might be. But see, I can manage all of that directly here. And then, I could do the database there, but I personally use File Manager for my databasing, right? Which I connect my hosting, my database specifically to Visual Studios. That's a whole nother story altogether. But I guess to my main point, right, of why I mentioned this, and why I even essentially set up this video. I have dealt with a few companies who really don't know what goes into IT, especially when it comes to understanding the differences between WordPress development and hosting. Hosting is essentially PHP specific. So is WordPress, of course, but everything is essentially a bit more automated on WordPress as opposed to cPanel and hosting, where you have to do everything by the code, so to speak, right? What do I mean by that? Well, let's say I go to File Manager or my database, right? As a good example, right? And I go to, public.html, right? All of my HTML files will be here, right? And this whole entire UI interface, anytime you change anything on here on a PHP level, it will translate over to the website, right? I could build an entire website on just here, right? And that's the beauty of dealing with PHP. I don't necessarily need the CMS platform to do that, but it would optimize it, and it would allow for a level of creativity that this interface would not allow, right? Hence the reason why CMS platforms exist, right? It's an add-on. It's not just for the visual aesthetics, right? It's for ease of integration and webhooking. It's allows for different functionalities, such as, for instance, product pages, right? Service pages, booking pages, and stuff like that. So one of the things I try my best to do and educate, especially when in interviews with jobs or when talking with potential clientele or companies in specific, is I try to let them know, look, there's a difference between a WordPress professional developer and a PHP professional developer, right? They're both essentially doing the same kind of work, but in a different space, right? Their thought processes might be different. The way they do things might be different, right? Whereas a PHP professional programmer will write in specific code, right, and handle things at a coding level, a WordPress developer will not. There is a light amount of coding here, obviously, as if you were to go to, let's say, theme editor as a good example. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so you see there's also a bit of level of code here, such as your assets, right, from CSS, right, to everything else in between. Right? I'm not going to show the rest, of course, because that'd be essentially me giving away my code. But that's kind of where I'm going at. They both have a light level of coding, especially when it comes to fixing of problems, right? WordPress developers tend to fix more problems on the CMS platform, as well as the PHP developers on their cPanel. The difference is that PHP developers or programmers fix their problems specifically on the written lines of code, whereas the WordPress developers do the same thing. The difference is it's more towards integration issues as opposed to programming issues, right? For instance, right? I mean, it's not just, I'm not obviously just trying to restrict it to one. Of course, there's multiple different various of problems, but as with anything that you try to create online, both on cPanel and WordPress, but as a good example, right? If I can move forward with this. If you go to the, let's say, plugins, right, and you install a plugin that, let's say your contact form and the Envato market, right? You install both programs, you upload and activate both programs. Well, you install and then activate both programs. Essentially, one, let's say, has a line of code that doesn't function well with Envato, right? That could be a problem. It could even break your site, and to the point where there's no site that you can see on the front end, right? That's one good marker for an example, one that we pretty much any developer can relate to, right? That's what I mean, right? And there's an inherent difference, right? And I understand that a lot of companies would like to streamline everything to one kind of thing, and that's all fair and good. And I'm a full stack developer myself, so I can't really say too much on the matter, considering I have made the attempt to essentially become fluent in all three stacks, right? Both server side, backend CMS, and front side design. So I have no leg to stand on, let's say, when I say you should try to focus on something specific. That's not what I'm trying to intro in this video, and I would never say to that effect. What I am trying to explain, though, is that there is a fundamental difference between these two platforms, right? Because they are platforms, right? One's just more of on the hosting level, while as the other one is on a third-party CMS platform, right? And they both have different environments that you need to understand. They may use the same level of programming, but they don't solve the same level of problems using said programming knowledge, right? Whereas PHP programmers would handle everything via PHP, create things via PHP, write the actual code. CMS platform kind of takes the middleman out of that and actually writes the code for you, right? And leaves it to you having the knowledge already on how to essentially solve a problem were it to accrue via said code, right? But it's automatically written and organized for you. As a matter of fact, I make it a point to directly create my websites off of a CMS platform because it saves me time, right? If I were to write everything in, let's say, PHP as a professional, me specifically, I can't speak for other people, but I can speak for myself. This would take 6 months to a year, right? At, let's say, a simple product-based website, right, like this, with instead of 15 products, let's say 126 products, right? Because my company is obviously small time with our products, right? But we still compete. But the point is, 126 products, realistically speaking, you're looking at maybe 126 different sub pages, right? And that's not counting this page that you're looking at this on, right? And every other page and the sub pages that they have. So if I have to write all of that directly on PHP, right, here on the, because it's getting written on PHP anyway, right? That's the beauty of it. The difference is there's a fundamental difference in why that's written, why this is written specifically in PHP and how this functions without me having to write everything specific, which I'll go into in a minute. But the thing is I would have to code it all by hand from scratch here, right? And you can't pay me the level of money enough to do that, right? This is the reason why developers get paid $120,000 a year, is the company's essentially trying to ask them, listen, can you write it from scratch, right? Because that is going to take forever, right? Forever and a half, at minimum, at least a year. To the point, on a CMS platform, that code is written for you, and the product pages are created, right, based off of whatever theme you're using, right? Let's say, since I'm using Tetsuo as my theme, right, it would create everything as thus, right, including all of the columns, the way that this is selected, and it allows me to customize that as the products get created on WooCommerce, right? Just give me a second. And product pages on WooCommerce. There we go. So as I create the products on WooCommerce, it automatically auto-populates the page, which makes building the 126 sub pages that would have taken almost, oh my god, amount of years to make, took me less than a couple days, a week, maybe less, right? So I'm optimizing my skills and knowledge to building this in the most fastest optimized way possible. Mind you, my company, CyberWorld, of course, is an army of one, right? I do hire freelance contractors to help me out on certain builds, especially large-scale projects, but I most of the time handle those projects myself. So, because, in life, if you can't handle something, if you can't trust anybody to do something right, you got to do it yourself, which is fair. It's a good rule of thumb for life sometimes. But the point is, the projects get built faster, right? Which saves me time. I can finish the project. The client won't have to wait 6 months to a year for a product to finish and get impatient. And the deadlines will be finished. And they walk away with a finished product, essentially their website, right? So that they can conduct their business, whatever that may be. So the point is, there's a fundamental difference between PHP programmers and WordPress professionals. You see what I'm saying? I already know the PHP programming coding side of that. I choose not to do that. I choose to work via WordPress where it's already written, right? Just to speed along the process of the build for the benefit of my clients. That doesn't take away from the knowledge base that I have. Of course, I could write everything in code directly. I mean, hell, dude, most of my characters, especially the one that you're currently looking at, is built with Visual Studio's Blender and Unity, right? And if you know what any of those are, then you'll know exactly what I mean by I know how to code, right? Hell, this is a custom character you can't find nowhere else because I built this myself. It's unique by nature, right? It's meant to kind of mirror a little bit of the Cyberworld-esque aesthetic that I'm trying to make. But anyway, I digress. The point is, I would rather build in such a way that speeds along the process and meets the goal, which in this case for my own particular business is service-based, right? A way for me to showcase my portfolios and at the same time a way for me to sell merchandise for those of you who are watching this YouTube channel today. Speaking of, check it out and buy some merch, damn it. Help a nigga out. Anyway, long story short, yes, can you build with programming code? Yes, you can. You can do it completely with PHP, and it's solely at the behest of the company if they want to hire PHP professionals. There's nothing wrong with that or WordPress professionals in general, right? I would argue to say you should probably learn the code, yes. My main gear, if you will, right? The thing that makes me a little bit confuzzled and a little mad is the fact that you're looking for a WordPress developer, but you're expecting that WordPress developer to write in code specifically. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but to have that expectation is inherently self-defeating, right? Because again, PHP programmers are going to write here. WordPress developers are going to do it here. You see where the fundamental difference lies, the two fundamental differences, right? And front-end designers are going to create their designs here, and it's going to showcase here. So that's pretty much it. Anyway, this has been Cyberworld. I've been your host, Reaper. Feel free, like I said, to check out the website. Got new merch, of course. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, because I am a small channel. It always helps to promote the video and or the channel so that people can always keep up to date with the tech tips and tricks as I learn them, of course. Anyway, with that said, this has been Cyberworld.